What's cracking YouTube? It's your boy Anthony Spritz, and look, I've been gone for a little minute, but that's because I had some things to take care of, and even then, this is probably not going to be my usual style of video just because I'm actually recording this on my phone, so I'm going to do my best to make sure that the quality is not all funky dunky and that you can understand me and that the video is a vibe. But if you are watching this and I actually get this up, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and specifically comment if the quality of the video was decent enough. I'd appreciate that. But today we're going to be talking about video games, and then specifically we're talking about exclusivity, meaning when one platform produces a video game and they keep it on that platform, like PS5 and Spider-Man, Xbox, Halo. You get the idea. But yeah, I want to just dive in and talk about the good, the bad, and what I think about it, because there's a lot going on in the video game space and I haven't been able to make a video in a minute, so I thought this would be some fun reflection time to get out to y'all. But without further ado, we're gonna jump right in, man. Let's get it. Being completely honest with y'all, it seems like the more we exist, the more the video game space just gets stranger and stranger, in my opinion. It's like we're living in some weird Rick and Morty pocket dimension or something. But when it comes to exclusive games, right, I think that there's pros and cons, and we're going to start with the good. What benefits might come out of if there is a future that has no exclusives or fewer exclusives. And I think some of the obvious benefits are, for the consumer or the average gamer, because like when you pick a console, right, whether it be PlayStation, Xbox, PC, you can just play what you want, right? You don't have to weigh out whether, if you get an Xbox or if you get a PlayStation, the what games you will be able to play and stuff like that. So that's obviously one obvious benefit. Another one is probably cost, right? Because if they don't make specific games and they can put their games everywhere, maybe these platforms will be able to recruit faster and we can get more games, and games at a lower price, because these prices are terrible, which is a whole nother video in itself. But I digress. Those are a couple benefits that I could think off the top of my head that would probably come about if the exclusive games thing dissolves into thin air. Let's see if I can think of some more. Maybe more opportunities for these developers to make the games that they want, because they're not focused on exclusives. And I'd imagine that it'd be easier to make multi-platform games. Those are games that are able to be played on every platform: Xbox, PlayStation, PC, Switch. You get the idea. I'm not 100% sure on that, but since we already have multi-platform games, I'd imagine it'd be easier to make games for everybody as opposed to one console or PC or whatever. But don't quote me on that one. That's just something that I got rattling in my little head. But those are some of the benefits that I think would come about, and I'm sure there are more, but those are just off the top of my head, from not having as many exclusives on these platforms, right? So obviously, besides the raw amount of money that these companies would make if there were no more exclusive games, say PlayStation, Xbox, right? If there were no more exclusives, and if PlayStation dropped another Spider-Man game or Wolverine or whatever they're going to drop, and it automatically goes over to Xbox and PC and Switch, that's more sales for the PlayStation platform, as I mentioned before, which can lead to better stuff like more games and passing the savings on to the consumer, us, the players, But this is where I get into some of the negatives, and my primary reason for making this video is because the thing that I'm thinking about is branding, right? So look, I grew up in an era of PlayStation, Xbox specifically, where you have the Xbox platform and you have things like Gears of War, Halo. You get that console to play on that platform for those games, right? PlayStation has theirs, like Ratchet and Clank, Spider-Man, Uncharted, The Last of Us, things like that. This is what sells these consoles. This is how they brand their company, as well as sell these things to you. When you saw an Xbox commercial back in the day, it had all those exclusive games as a way to entice you over to their console.
Buy a futon for college, get a free Allen wrench. Or buy a PC for college, get a free Xbox 360. Buy Windows 7 PC, get a free Xbox 360. All you really need for college.
And without exclusives, I wonder, how is Sony gonna pitch me a PlayStation 6 or the new Xbox, right? Because if it comes out and I can get every game on everything, I'm just gonna get a PC. And that's just my way of thinking, right? Other people might think differently. They might still get a PlayStation, they might still get an Xbox. But my point being, how are they gonna move their hardware if they're not using their specific games as a selling point? What would they do? How would it get from point A to point B? Very interesting to think about, right? And that's really my main point, is like, what are they going to do as far as branding? Because if you know anything about marketing, right, when you look at stores, right, you're going to know Starbucks from Dunkin' Donuts because of things like their slogans, their logos, their colors, the specific items that they offer. If Starbucks sold the exact same drinks as Dunkin' Donuts and Dunkin' Donuts vice versa, right, it'd be harder for them to sell you on where to go. It'd be harder for them to tell you, hey, come here instead of going over there, because it seems like it'd be the same stuff. And so that's one thing that I'm really interested in as far as what's going on right now with Microsoft and with Sony, and how they're handling the exclusive thing. More Microsoft and Xbox right now. Sony a little bit, but we're gonna have to wait and see how that develops. Like I said, there's so much going on in the gaming space. And another question that I have when it comes to this exclusivity thing is, what happens to those studios that were specifically made to create games for one platform? For example, we already know that Xbox had acquired a lot of video game studios in the past year or two, and they're already making cutbacks and firing a whole bunch of people, which is another video in itself. I keep saying that, but like I said, it's a lot going on. But my question is, what happens to those other studios that are used to making games for one platform? Will it be easier for them to switch over to multi-platform games? Will it be harder? Will there be more cutbacks, more layoffs? Those are things that I think about, right? It would hopefully be better for platforms like Microsoft and Sony if the exclusivities allowed them to lower the pricings of their games or pass on the savings. But what if they don't do that? Like, it's a lot of things up in the air, and it's interesting to me that they are getting rid of their exclusives in a time where I think that people like Microsoft, Sony, and even Nintendo are pushing to sell more of their hardware, right? They want you to buy their console and play it over the competitors. That's normal, right? You're in business. It's a business thing. So it's just very strange to me. It's something I really wanted to talk about, because I don't know, man. I also grew up in an era where Halo played on Xbox. Obviously PC has the same games as Xbox, but more or less like Halo, Gears of War, playing on Xbox. PlayStation, Ratchet and Clank and Uncharted and Last of Us, and as recently Spider-Man and Ghost of Tsushima. Those are PlayStation games, Days Gone, need the Days Gone 2, whole bunch of videos in the back catalog I'm gonna be bringing to y'all, but y'all get the idea. It's just a very, very interesting time, and I think the exclusivity thing has me raising an eyebrow. I got way more questions than I got answers or optimistic views on it. So appreciate y'all for sticking with me, and hope everybody is doing great, having a great day. But other than that, man, I ain't really got no more to say. So just like that, you already know how I'm rocking. I'm gone.